And now, for the thousands in attendance and the millions of people that wish they were sitting in front of my bar at the moment, welcome to the 10th episode of At the Bar with Yo Adrian, where I explore the lives and times of some really interesting people. And one of those interesting people happens to be Australian boxing legend, Glen Kelly. How are you, Glen?
Yeah, good, Adrian.
Just coming a little bit closer, mate. Very, very happy we've got Glen here this morning. He's a boxing legend, all right, and I'm going to go through his record. It's a very, very proud record for Glen. Glen Kelly's boxing record. Here we go. 34 fights. It reads. 3 losses, 17 knockouts. So more than half of those fights were KOs and 1 draw. He won the New South Wales light heavyweight title in 1996. Won the Australian light heavyweight title in 1997. He won the IBF Pan Pacific light heavyweight title in 1999. He won the IBF light heavyweight Intercontinental title in the US against American Billy Lewis in 2000. He challenged Roy Jones Jr. for the undisputed light heavyweight world title in February in 2002. 2005, his last fight, he also challenged David Haye. Everyone's heard of David Haye. He's a former heavyweight world champion. Some of the other great fighters of note that he fought is Sam Solomon, a former IBF middleweight world champ. You beat him by a unanimous decision over 12 rounds. And John McGarvey, the Beast, former WBC super welterweight world champ who had KO'd 39 of his 42 fights. And a guy that fought, as I said, Marvin Hagel and some of the best middleweights at that time. And David Haye, as I mentioned before, a unified cruiserweight world champ, as well as the WBA heavyweight world champion. And of course, Roy Jones Jr., probably noted by a lot of people as the best ever pound-for-pound fighter. Multiple world champion in 4 weight classes, including middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. Now, I've got a drink over there for you, mate. So it's customary at the Yo Adrian bar that everyone has a drink. Some people knock back the drink. Glen's agreed to have a drink with us. It's the Inverno. It's with a ginger ale. Cheers, Glen.
Cheers, mate.
Another sip, mate. So that's a pretty impressive boxing record there. And before I go further, Glen, this is how humble this man is. And I won't mention his name, he's a young fella. I went down to Daceyville Police Boys Pub, which is not far from where we are now, Matraville. And Glen was sitting at the edge of the ring there, just minding his own business. I think he was wrapping a strap around his knuckles at the time. And I've got this mate of mine, he's crazy about Roy Jones Jr. He's got posters about him all over his room. And he's looked at me, and he's looked at Glen, and I said, listen, you know who that guy is? And he said, who? I said, he fought Roy Jones Jr. for the undisputed light heavyweight title. He went, bullshit. Are you serious? I said, yeah. I said, you know him, Roy Jones Jr. I said, you know he fought Glen Kelly in Australia? He goes, yeah. He says, is that him? I said, that's him. Anyway, he was taken back by it, and his face went red. And I said, go up to him and say hello to him. He was too shy to. Anyway, I said, and have a look behind the ring, there's a poster there. And I said, there's Glen with Roy Jones Jr. And the poster was the actual poster for the fight. So you would never think that Glen Kelly, as humble as he is, which he's very, very humble, and that's why I couldn't wait to get him in here. I love a humble champion. And as I said, good morning, Glen. And got first question, mate, for you. What was it like growing up in La Perouse as a kid during the 70s and the 80s? Because you're a local Lapa kid.
Yeah, we lived in Newtown first until I was about 5 years old, and then we moved out to Lapa. But yeah, growing up, we had our mishaps and ups and downs. But through my teens and all that, done a few stupid things, which I'm not going to mention on the radio.
Like we all have.
Yeah, but in the end, everything turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I've got a lot of mates out there. Big Rat, he's probably one of my best out lapper. A few more.
And Troy Stewart.
Yeah.
I remember playing against him in rugby league, which you also dabbled in a bit. You played a bit of rugby league. I remember against when I played football as on the weekends for Marcelin, which wasn't as good as our school team. I remember playing against La Perouse, and I got this mystery illness. It was called La Peritis. It was always against La Perouse because, to be honest with you, I used to shit myself playing against them, especially against this Troy Stewart bloke he looked like a man when we were kids, and he just run through us. Him and his partner in crime was a guy called Sims, he related to Eric Sims. Brendan Sims, and they used to kill us. But we'd get back at them when we played, when they were playing for Matraville, and I was playing for our Marcelin school team, which was a stronger team. But they were formidable, and he was a great player. Now, how did you get into boxing?
Kevin was doing a bit of boxing, and I noticed that training.
Kevin, your brother, Kevin?
Yeah, my brother Kevin. I noticed that footy training that he was fitter than everyone else. So I just went down with him and said, no, I just want to get fit. There was no plan to box or anything.
Just come a little bit closer, mate. We're almost got on the ball.
Yeah, I just went down and get fit. There was no intentions to box or anything, and I started getting really fit. So I got down from 97 kilo to 76 at one stage, and Kev turned around and said, why don't you have a fight? And I said, yeah, I was thinking about it. So I was probably 24 at the time. And I think, I had my first amateur at nearly 25. So, and I had 3 amateur fights.
That's pretty late, isn't it?
Yeah, very late. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I just 25. I turned pro after my third amateur fight, thinking I was running out of time if I was going to do anything. And 6 years into my pro career, I get to fight Roy Jones. It was a pretty quick rise.
Do you remember your first trainer in the boxing gym?
I did have a spar with Langy. You know Langy?
Yeah, Jason Lang.
Yeah.
Call out to Jason Lang. I'm sure he'll be listening to this podcast. Jason, really lovely guy. Champion bloke, in fact.
He belted me up. It was my second spar ever.
He's from Newtown, wasn't he, originally?
With Johnny.
Part of that Newtown crew,
Johnny. But he belted me up, and I won a rematch.
Yeah?
Yeah, so... But he said, it's coming.
Jason Lang, eh? So, what made you choose boxing over rugby league? Because I know you played a bit of rugby league. You played for Larper. You played in some of those Aboriginal knockouts, I believe.
Yeah, well, look, as I said, it wasn't intentional to box.
Yeah.
But just one thing led to another, and I just kept winning, and I won my first 29 fights undefeated. So I just, as I said, it wasn't intentional to do it, but it just blossomed into something, and I just went from there. And
29 fights without it. That's pretty good. Who was your inspiration back then? Or who was your mentor? Did you have a boxing trainer or someone that you sort of looked up to?
It was pretty much Kevin.
Yeah.
Just seeing how he was going and that, and with his fitness, and Dad pushed us into it when we were kids. Probably 10 years old. We did it for a year, but
Your dad played rugby league too, didn't he?
No.
He didn't?
No. No. He was a wharfie, mate.
More, yeah.
Yeah, but he always tried to do his best for us, you know, and push us in the right direction. He wasn't, how do I say it? He wasn't anything unbelievable athlete or anything like that. But yeah, he had some mates and that. Bruce Farming, he was our first.
Bruce Farming from Eastern Suburbs Police Boys Club.
Woolloomooloo he was.
Woolloomooloo, yeah. He used to train the Olympic boxing team.
Yeah, well, he was Commonwealth champion as well.
I remember I was at the Eastern Suburbs Police Boys Club doing a bit of boxing there and sparring there, and he was the opposing trainer.
So because Dad made us do it, we didn't like it, and that's a bit of advice for parents that are trying to push their kids into things. You can't force them. You've got to let them choose. Like I've said to my kids, you got to do something, but you know, you don't have to be the best at it or whatever. You just got to be out there and doing something and be active. You know, I just don't want you sitting around playing the games and stuff.
Yeah, your dad he inspired you like that, did he? And he gave you the encouragement. And saying that, your dad, he passed away not long ago. That's why we sort of delayed this podcast. And from what I've been told, I didn't know your dad that well, but everyone said that he was like loved in the Perouse area. He was like an uncle to a lot of people. So we raised a drink for Glen's dad. God bless him. And I'm sure he'll be looking down at you in heaven, mate, wherever he is, in dream time, which is your Aboriginal culture. And he'd be very proud, mate, of you. And have you got any siblings?
I've got one sister, 3 brothers.
Right, so he'd be very proud of all of you.
He made us do some type of sport all the time. Whether it was little athletics or swimming or gymnastics for my sister, boxing for us, footy for us. It was just something just to keep us busy and active. And that was one of his words was, you don't have to be a champion at it. So anyway, let's jump down the track. Probably 12 years later, me and Kev go back into boxing. And I think that was from the upbringing with Dad's brought us, and Mum as well. But yeah, I really believe that he put us on that path. You know, so I thank him for that as well.
Here's a good question for you. What did that early success, you're talking about your 29 fights without a loss, do for your confidence? And did it give you self-belief that you could one day become a world champion with that record?
Yeah, possibly, but we were doing some stupid things outside the ring too, you know, so things you shouldn't be doing. But never ever thought I was going to get to fight Roy Jones, because I followed him from middleweight. He was a junior middleweight first, and I remember I was at Kenzo, the White House, and I was having a drink. I was probably 23, 24, and these 2 old guys are standing by me and said to each other, "Should see this guy fight. He's unbelievable." And I just sat there quietly. It was like a bender, but, you know. And 2 rounds, and I just went, "Oh, wow, who's this bloke? Never seen him before in my life." And that inspired me as well, as well as seeing how fit Kevin was, you know. So never ever thought in a million years I was ever going to get to fight this bloke. But I got there.
And what was the feeling like when you were told you're going to fight a legend like Roy Jones Jr. in the US? I mean, it wasn't in Australia. for the undisputed light heavyweight title, which I tell everyone is probably the second biggest prize in sport. Heavyweight world championship back in the 50s and 60s was like, if you were the heavyweight champion, everyone knew you all around the world. So, I mean, boxing's starting to get its prestige back now. It lost its way there for a while, but, you know, like, people make, there's motion picture movies made about the middleweight champion, like, you know, what somebody up there likes with the Raging Bull. So, boxing's a huge sport. You fought for the light heavyweight title, the second biggest, you know, prize in sport.
Never, yeah.
So what was that feeling like?
It's a little bit starstruck.
You would have been.
Just the people that were at the fight, to be
Yeah.
honest. O.J. Simpson.
He was there, was he?
Yeah. Cuba Gooding Jr. Michael Jordan, Shaq.
Did you meet him? Did they come up here?
No, I was about to meet Michael Jordan, but something happened and people were all rushing towards him, and you know, it just wasn't meant to happen. You know, he was just crowded by everyone.
Far out, I didn't know that.
Whitney Houston was there.
Wow.
So it was just the stars of stars.
Did you go into that fight believing you could win?
Not
And with that, you had the fame and fortune, and your next pay packet would have been enormous.
look, just a lot of things wasn't right in
Yeah.
that fight. I didn't believe in the training that I did.
Yeah.
It was the right idea, but I was never in my first 26 fights or something. I never ever fought that way.
Yeah.
And then people were trying to change it to be a brawler, and I was never a brawler. But to be in all honesty, you was never ever going to outbox the guy. You wasn't going to outbox Roy Jones. So I was a catch-22 stage there. You know, damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, that probably, you're talking about your preparation, segue into the next question. Tell us about your preparation. You said it was probably the wrong preparation. You know, you wanted to box, you were told to brawl.
Well, the weights, we weren't allowed to do weights. And that, I believed in that. I really did. So Gary Ross was our weights trainer and everything. So I believed in that. And that, all the things that I believed in was taken away from me.
Yeah.
You know, and my confidence, mate, was down there, mate. When I was getting ready, and you know what? In the end, I was just thinking, I just can't wait for this fight to get over, so I can just get out of there. You know, it's a horrible mindset to go over with.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I really felt.
Were you starstruck?
You know what? I was not confident at all.
Yeah.
I was being put down.
Honest, yeah.
Yeah, I was being put down in the gym, and you know, by the people that were supposed to be looking after my best interest.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I just went over there and I wasn't confident.
Would you have done anything different if you had that time over again?
Yeah, yeah.
What would you have done
I
different?
would have got a different trainer.
Yeah. You mentioned Gary, who's also a friend of mine. We're mutual friends. I believe he used to get you running up those stairs at Coogee, and you got the record amount of. You run up there about. What was the record that you did then?
21.
That's unbelievable.
But a lady told me she done 30 laps, but she walked
Did
them.
6 almost died.
She walked them, she said. Yeah, she said to me, I did 30, but I walked them.
Geez, you must have been fit.
I was, and
So fitness wouldn't have been a problem in that fight.
Well, I wasn't doing the stairs when that fight was coming up. You know, all that stuff was cut out. You know, it was taken away from me, and there were all the things that I believed in that I felt that made me work better.
Yeah.
You know, whereas the right idea was to brawl him and make it a dirty fight, but he had an answer for it.
Yeah.
You know, he had an answer.
Well, he was
for
in his
everything.
prime back then.
Yeah.
It was like not when he fought Danny Green. He was basically washed up and.
Well, he'd
wasn't
been
the same.
stopped, I think 2 or 3 times.
That's right.
But
Tarver, I think, stopped him, and,
yeah,
and yet, you know, they say that once you've been knocked out, you're never the same after that. You know.
well,
That's-
Glen Johnson,
Glen Johnson almost.
that was
did
my
knock him
main,
out too,
yeah, that was my main sparring partner for Roy Jones when I got to America.
How did you go against Glen Johnson when you were sparring? That would have
Pretty good, yeah.
So
And
he-
his excuse was he's not fit.
Yeah.
So, but he was a good, tough fighter, mate. I think he beat Tarver once too.
Mm.
So I think him and Tarver had 3 fights, and Tarver won 2, and he won 1. But yeah, and Tarver is the first guy to knock Roy Jones out and Danny Green.
Wow.
But Danny Green knocking Roy Jones
Yeah.
out, and mate, in 1 round, that is extremely hard to do, even at that stage of his career.
Have you ever spoken to Roy Jones Jr. since that fight?
No, not really. He come down after it and sat with us and had a chat with us, and you know, he said, you know, just don't give up. You just was up against it tonight, and
Yeah.
you know, you
So he's encouraging, yeah.
yeah, he didn't put you down or nothing. And you know what? He was just hanging around with himself. He didn't like the hanger-ons.
Yeah.
He just liked being by himself after his fights and that. So he was a down-to-earth guy.
Did he know that you're an Australian Aboriginal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that never ever came up, that
Yeah.
we were Aboriginal.
Because I think a lot of Americans, they know about the proud history of Aboriginal fighters. There's been so many. You're one of them, and your brother too. He fought for I can't forget Kevin. He fought for a middleweight title against Reed. You get look at these fighters. I'll just rattle them off now. There's so many of them. You've got Dave Sands, who he was. They reckon he was right up there with Sugar Ray Robinson. They reckon if he would have fought Robinson, would have given Robinson a run for his money, but his life was cut short, tragically. He was killed by a car rolling back onto him. Ron Richards, similar weight to you, big light. He was a large frame fighter, light heavyweight. Of course, Lionel Rose, which is probably the best Australian boxer that we've ever had. Ellie Bennett, Jerry Jerome, Jack Hassan, who's related to another kid down there, the Garveys, I believe.
Mark Sims, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. No.
Grandfather.
He was a good mate of my dad's.
Yeah,
too.
there's-
Jack Hassan.
They're natural boxers. I remember being at the Police Boys Club myself, and I used to train at Redfern. And I used to sparring against Brian Roberts and Paul Roberts. And for me, I was a hard punching slugger and that, and they were all technically sound boxers. I couldn't lay a glove on them, you know. And and it was just like good fighters. A lot of respect for Aboriginal boxers. So, as a proud Indigenous man, I want you to think about this question. Do you believe this whole reconciliation progress with a white Australia is now sustainable, and that your people are being fairly represented and respected in business, sport and politics? In fact, as a whole package. How do you think we are now in Australia in 2022 in regards to the respect of your culture and Australian people as a whole?
Certain people are trying to make things better,
Yeah.
and other side of people are still trying to keep us down. That's what I believe. There are a lot of people that are trying to help, but there's always the shutters put up. You know, you turn one corner and then you run into another. So they're trying, but
I always look at that. You know that Goods at the boat AFL. That was sad what happened to him. I mean, I met him. He's a really nice bloke. Shit that he got put up with. They put up with him. It's just terrible.
You know, like until I got to know him properly.
Yeah.
And that, mate, he's pretty much was a hero.
Yeah.
And what he done. You know, he stood up and, you know, and Eddie Maguire and that, you know, saying stuff on the camera, he was seen on the camera, it was inappropriate, you know, what he said. Sam Newman gets on the show on TV, painted black,
yeah.
You know.
But he's got a track record of being a dickhead. I don't think anyone takes notice of him.
Yeah.
But see, I look at Anthony Mundine, and he's got a lot of detractors, but I personally like Anthony Mundine. You know, thought the world of his dad. He spoke out about it. He was in similar vein to, say, Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali, as he'd become known as. And I always found Anthony Mundine is a great example of, you know, someone who has done really, really well your culture, and someone to be proud of. You know, he's done well in the sport. He doesn't drink. He's law-abiding. Yeah, he speaks out. He speaks out against racism. But no one can ever say that you know, he's an embarrassment. What he's done for your community.
Mate, he's a good spokesman. Sometimes he might not say the right thing. Yeah. But
with the September 11 thing, I think that was a bit.
Yeah. But most of the time, he's right. People just can't see it. You know, and people want to ignore it. You know, this is why he didn't get picked in the New South Wales sides and that. Yeah. Because he spoke up. And he was pushed aside. In that, mate, he done extremely well out of boxing.
Yeah. Do you see Anthony much? Do you have much contact with him? Do you talk to him much?
When I see him, I'll say hello and that and have a little chat. But mate, he put boxing back on the map in Australia.
Was there any talk that you and him could meet in the ring at one time? Say a bit of a catch weight?
No, look, I was getting older and weight was going on, and you know, I started losing the drive for it.
How do you think that fight would have went?
You got to be able to do it with his speed.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah, he's got, mate. He was a pretty good boxer, to be honest. He was. And he got better and better. He went the distance with Mikel Kessler, so that's not easy. He's, how do I say this? He didn't live up to his full potential. I felt he could have done a lot better in the world of boxing if he just fought the right fights. But you know, he done well.
He made a lot of money from it.
Yeah, he done well.
He did do well. Now, on a lighter note, I want you to give us your top 10 heavyweights. Now, I'm going to give you my top 10 first, heavyweights of all time. All right, now here's my list. A lot of people might not agree with my top 10 because I haven't put any modern day fighters in my top 10. But here's my top 10. I've got number 1, Muhammad Ali. Number 2, George Foreman. Number 3, Lennox Lewis. Number 4, Joe Louis. Number 5, Jack Johnson. I'm going back a bit there. Sonny Liston, who I named after my son, as 6. 7, Evander Holyfield. 8, Joe Frazier. 9, Rocky Marciano. And just sneaking in, and I copped a bit of criticism from this from a lot of people, is Mike Tyson. Give us your top 10, Glenn.
I would say Tyson's right up there. Yeah. But Holyfield beat him, but he didn't beat him in his peak. You know, but Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis has to be there.
Yeah.
See, I'm just saying the ones of recent times,
Yeah.
not the ones way back, because I don't have enough insight on their careers and that. It's hard, mate, off the top.
The thing about what makes Lennox Lewis great too is the times he was beaten, he come back and he beat those 2 losses.
Yeah.
So that's why I had him so high. George Foreman was just, what he did was incredible. He won at the age of 28 and he knocked out Joe Frazier, knocked him down something 6 or 7 times, and then he come back at the age of 45 and beat Michael Moorer, who beat Holyfield. So that's where my argument is with when people say to me, oh, the heavyweights that came about later were better because of modern technology and all that bullshit that people want to mention. Stop and think about this. This is the way I look at it. This is the way I answer that question. Is if a guy like George Foreman at 45 can come back and beat the modern heavyweights, what does that say about the modern heavyweights? Because a George Foreman, would you agree, at 28 is a lot better than a George Foreman at 45?
Yeah, definitely.
That's where my argument is. So I can imagine a George Foreman 28 would have demolished Moorer, which means he probably would have demolished Holyfield and
Holyfield came back and avenged that, lost to Moorer and knocked Moorer out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's just the ease in which Foreman knocked out Moorer at the time. And I mean, yeah, he was slow and all that, but as you know, power was the last thing to go.
It was just one shot.
Yeah, that one shot.
Caught him with that one shot. And,
yeah.
But, mate, it's not easy to land that.
And then you've got someone like Rocky Marciano, who people, they say, oh, he was too small, but he was just tough. You know, he'd, at 5'10", which is basically, I'm 5'10", probably weighed a bit less than me because he's fighting fit. But someone to go out and be the heavyweight champion at that weight and that height is incredible. I think he weighed around about 89 kilos.
Yes, something like that.
So he must have been a tough bugger. Jack Johnson, who was like a mod. How can we make an example of Jack Johnson's like? He was like a Tyson Fury at that time, very clever fighter. So I rate him very high. He's in my top 5. Is there anyone in that list that I've mentioned that you probably wouldn't put in?
No.
Sonny Liston, what do you think of Sonny Liston?
Yeah, he was, when Muhammad Ali knocked him out,
Yeah. Bit sus?
possibly.
Yeah.
Who knows? Some
That
might
might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, well, and it was rife back then,
Yeah.
so you just don't know. You don't want to make accusations or anything like that, but it is what it is. And
I just thought the first fight when he didn't come out for the 7th round, he made out, he didn't want to make accusations, but he said that he tore his shoulder, but he was getting outboxed.
yeah,
His face was pretty puffed up. And then you get someone like Joe Frazier, who was like similar style to, which I've got him in as number 8, similar to Marciano. And that would have been a great fight.
he wasn't a big man.
He wasn't big,
Wasn't that big.
but he troubled Ali. They 3 fights that they had. He beat Ali the first time, fair and square. And the second one was really, really close. And the third one,
He wouldn't come out.
yeah, he wouldn't come out. And it's not because he
I
didn't want to
think
come out.
Angelo Dundee.
I think
No.
Eddie Futch, his trainer,
That's it. Yeah.
said, because he would have kept going. But as I said, they were almost 3 decision fights. That ended, I think it was end up TKO, wasn't it? And he wouldn't come out for the 15th round. But Ali said that if he didn't come out, Ali admitted, he said, I don't think I was ready to fight that last round. He was just
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah,
He was gone.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Now, I've got a final question for you, Glenn. And on my podcast, end with this question. If you could change anything about yourself, what would it be?
If I could go back in time,
Yep.
I'd do it properly.
What's that? Your boxing
My
career?
boxing career. I'd do it properly, and I wouldn't mess around and hit the party scene. And this is what I'm trying to push onto my kids.
You've got 5 kids, and call out to his wife Tracy, that I know is going to be watching this.
But I'm just, my mistakes was to teach them. That's what I believe. All my mistakes is to teach them not to go the same way I did. But I still went pretty good, so it's not the end of the world. So,
Mate, I think you've done very well, and you're a very, very humble man. And we love that in Australia, humbleness. As I said, your legacy is always going to be remembered. As you fought for a light heavyweight undisputed title against Jones Jr. Not many people can say that.
not in his peak.
Yeah.
It was in his peak.
Exactly. So that's amazing, mate. As I said, being interviewing you now, I'm very, very proud that I'm interviewing you, because I love boxing, and I know a lot about boxing, and did a bit of boxing myself, and to be interviewing you is a massive thrill for me.
I had the choice to pick 2 other champions to fight.
Yeah.
And I had to go for the top.
Yeah.
Because he was the best, mate. He was the best out of every division.
Yeah.
That's what I believe anyway.
He certainly was. Well, he's known as being the best fighter pound for pound. So that means, as I always finish with all my podcasts, if Glen can change, which means I can change, which means you can change. So until my next podcast, sometime next year, treat people as you'd like to be treated yourself. As I always say, don't take any shit from anybody. Until next year, bye fellas, bye ladies.